Hello and welcome to another episode of Analog Insights. In today's episode, I'd like to review a very special lens from the mid-1960s that is famous for its incredible look and character, its amazing bokeh, and its propensity for flare as well. And I'm talking about the Pentax Super-Takumar 50mm f1.4 lens, and not any kind of version, but the very first version of this lens that had an unusual lens design with 8 elements in 6 groups and a cemented triplet with a curved surface, which is really hard to manufacture as well. And Pentax created this lens with the sole purpose of dethroning the 50mm Carl Zeiss Planar lens that was considered the world's best lens at the time. And they went into this market with full force, manufacturing this really difficult 8 elements and 6 group lens design. And apparently, Asahi, according to urban legend and the internet, Asahi lost money on every copy that was produced and sold of this lens. And once the press had awarded it the crown and said, okay, this new Pentax Super-Takumar 50mm is the world's best lens, the lens design was secretly changed already after 2 years in 1966. And basically the lens only featured a 7 elements and 6 groups design with different features and according to many sources, and I can attest to that here as well, really a different look and feel to it. This particular lens here is of course special and was actually sent down to me from Norway by one of the viewers of this channel, and here I'd really like to thank you again for this incredible way of reaching out to me and then sending it all the way down to Norway for this review. So thanks for that. As always, I've tested this lens extensively in the last couple of weeks, shooting it in combination with a Pentax SP500 and just an Oberwert ISA strap, which I really liked as a small combination. It's a really nice small package. And I find myself repeatedly using it now, even after I've completed this little lens review. And I've shot 2 rolls of Ilford FP4 in the Botanical Garden and 2 rolls of Ilford Pan F on the streets of Munich for this review. So let's take a closer look at some of the images in order to discuss the quality and the character of this very special lens. The Pentax Super-Takumar 50mm f1.4 lens was introduced in 1964, and in that particular 8 element and 6 groups design only produced until 1966. There were then 3 versions of the lens afterwards that all came in a 7 elements and 6 groups design that had slight changes in the material for the focusing ring and also in the number of aperture plates, but most importantly, the coating of the lenses became increasingly better. And that always affects, that reduces the propensity to flare and also the color rendering. So this first version of the lens really performs not that well in bright conditions, and overall does also not perform that well when shooting color. So especially if you shoot it on digital cameras, you can see that it will produce a lot of color fringes and things like that. And I, for this particular test here, settled on just shooting black and white film. Visually, the first version can be distinguished by the following characteristics. The rear element protrudes slightly, and then most importantly on the depth of field scale, the infrared mark is to the right of the 4 numeral. And on the stop down switch, it is marked A and M instead of the later versions which said auto and MAN for manual. And the early versions also apparently have a dot on the aperture ring at f2. The lens is a full metal construction that weighs 245 grams. It is made for the M42 mount, which can also be adapted to digital cameras today, but as mentioned before, I would recommend shooting 35mm with it, and particularly 35mm black and white film. The lens has 6 aperture blades and a minimum focusing distance of 45 centimeters, which I really appreciated, especially in the botanical garden, to be able to get that close to my subjects and get these beautiful close-up images with a strong foreground and background separation. The maximum aperture is of course f1.4 and the minimum one is f16, and the filter size is 49mm. What about the characteristics of this lens? That's the most important question. And here I, of course, have to mention how it shoots when you shoot it wide open, how it feels when you shoot it at f1.4 and f2. You get an incredible softness and dreamy atmosphere, a beautiful creamy bokeh with definitely a special characteristic. Apparently there are people who can recognize images taken with this lens just because of the bokeh and the kind of look it creates when shot wide open. The base resolution, interestingly, is already very good when shot wide open. Only the sharpness is lacking, so it's a little bit soft, but once you stop down to f2 or f2.8, as I did on many of the images that I'm showing you here, the sharpness increases significantly and you get an incredible resolution onto your film. So when you look at images like this one here, where you have a strong foreground background separation and you have an incredible bokeh and a creamy background, you still get a lot of sharpness and resolution in your in-focus area onto your film plane. And that really surprised me, and I really like that. What is also important to mention is the propensity to flare and the kind of glow that is created relatively fast when you shoot against the light or you have strong highlights in your frame. And I noticed that this was somewhat disturbing when shooting street. Sometimes I did not like the images, the resulting images, because of the strong highlights that I had and the blown out highlights that I got because of the characteristics of this lens. But when shooting it in the botanical garden, I really liked that, and how it treated it, shadowy areas and more illuminated areas, and also how the lens, especially when shot wide open or open to f2.8, also treated the foreground of my images and the foreground out of focus areas. That also contributed to this dreamy atmosphere and this immersive feel of the images. So my summary here was that once you understand the characteristics of this lens, it is very easy to use it and to take advantage of these characteristics in the images that you're taking, and consciously decide, does it make sense for this particular shot and subject that I intend to shoot to use that lens and make use of the characteristics like I did in the botanical garden, or, as happened to me occasionally in the street shots, does it kind of distract from the subject that I'm shooting because of its strong characteristics, because of the bokeh that kind of screams for some attention because it's so nice and so interesting, especially for people who know what it's all about. And that for me is really the key question here, picking up that lens whenever you want to use it and you make use of the special characteristics. what about the handling and what are my personal impressions? Overall, I really enjoyed shooting this lens, and I found myself picking it up repeatedly in the combination that I've mentioned before with the Pentax SP500 and the overweight ESA strap. And on one occasion, one Sunday, when I visited the Alte Pinakothek here in Munich, so an art gallery, I was even approached by one of the staff asking me about the Pentax camera that I had in hand, and then kind of teaching me about how it was in the olden days, and that you can still attach these lenses to digital today, and that he was doing that and so forth. And I found that interesting, and I like having these kinds of experiences, having basically a piece of equipment that also works as a conversation starter to some extent. And looking just at the lens, the machined aluminum of the focusing ring handles beautifully. You get such a tight grip. It feels so nicely turning the focusing ring. And overall, I can say the copy really aged well, given the fact that it's over 50 years old. It's such a beautiful, nice lens still. So I got really lucky with the copy that was sent to me here from Norway. The only downside or thing that I noticed is that the aperture ring does not run that smoothly anymore, so there is a little bit of friction when you're turning it. But other than that, it's still a beautiful lens and it still works smoothly. So overall, I can say this is the kind of piece of equipment that was built to last, and not just last until the next season. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Analog Insights and this review of the very first version of the Pentax Super-Takumar 50mm f1.4 lens. As you could hopefully see from this review, this is a very special character lens with a beautiful bokeh, incredible special characteristics and look to it, and yet also quite some propensity to flare and not really good color rendering. Of course, that you can see, but believe me, trust me on that, it's not its strong part. But if you're like me and just want to shoot 35mm black and white film with it anyways, I can highly recommend taking a look at this beautiful piece of equipment, especially if you get a copy that has aged well. You can still feel the kind of quality that went and the kind of money that went into the production of this lens that was really built with the intention of becoming the world's best 50mm lens in the 1960s. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please remember to like this video and maybe even share it with your friends. And if you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe to our channel. Jules, Greg, and I really appreciate it. So thanks for watching. I hope to see you soon. Bye.